Hello and welcome to another Talk Wildlife video. Today I am going to be talking to Jess Owen from the Wildfowl and Wetland Trust about a project that she's been involved with. So first of all, hello. How are you?
Hello. Good, thank you.
Good. Should we start off by you just introducing yourself and just giving us a little bit of background to who you are? That would be a great start.
Yeah, sure. So I've been working for the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust for just over a year now, and I'm based at Welney Wetland Centre, which is in the Norfolk-Cambridgeshire borders, and I'm an engagement officer for Project Godwit. So my role is to engage with local people, local communities and school groups about the project and get them interested, not just in the project, but also interested in wetlands in general, and getting them involved with their local habitat and having a sense of pride in it as well, and a sense of ownership. So that's my job, and I've done similar jobs in the past for other wildlife charities. So I worked for Orca, Whale and Dolphin charity, and then I worked for TCV, the Conservation Volunteers, as well, doing quite similar roles in public engagement.
Excellent. And just for those who might be watching in sort of some other country, with hope that somebody might be watching in another country, do you want to just tell us a little bit about Welney? Because I mean, obviously I know Welney. I go there a lot. The bacon and egg sandwich is fantastic. You can tell the cafe staff that. So yeah, if you just sort of tell us a little bit about sort of where it is and what type of reserve it is, that'd be really good.
Yeah, so Welney is one of 10 wetland centres that's run by WWT, and it's one of a few that don't have a captive collection. So some of the reserves, like Slimbridge and London, they've got a captive collection of birds, and then they've also got a nature reserve, whereas at Welney we're just a nature reserve, and we're based on the Ouse Washes, which is a big stretch of wetland that was man-made. It was hand-dug in the 1600s with the purpose of alleviating flood in the surrounding area. So we get huge amounts of water flooding there in the winter time, and it's fantastic for wildfowl, and particularly migratory bird species like swans and ducks as well. So we get lots of hooper swans and Bewick's swans, and we get lots of pochard as well. So it's for the purpose of alleviating flood, but it's also fantastic for wildlife as well. So we manage a stretch of the Ouse Washes alongside the RSPB and a few other organisations. So it's about 22 miles long and about half a mile wide. But then we also have land the other side, which is a wet grassland, and that's fantastic home for lots of wading species, particularly breeding waders in the springtime. So it's quite a flat reserve, but it's quite diverse. There's lots going on there, and like you say, it's got a good cafe.
It has, and it's also one of the best places, I think, in probably, well, definitely Norfolk, but probably the whole of the country, to see barn owls in the winter.
Oh yes,
barn owls there are just amazing.
Yeah, you see them a lot in the car park, and do seem to roost in some of our old hides as well. Yeah,
amazing place for that. Right, okay, so this is where it could all go wrong, but we'll try anyway. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share screen, because I'd like to talk to you about the project you're working on now, which is Project Godwit. But what I'd like to do is sort of have some slides up so people can get the context while you're talking. So if you just bear with me for seconds, hopefully, I'll share screen.
Great.
Right, now with a bit of luck, you can see the screen. I can't see you, which is interesting, because I could last time.
I can see the screen, yes.
All right, so as long as you can see the screen, then what we'll do is we'll keep on talking.
Right.
I'll sort of move the slides through, but if you'd like to first of all introduce the project.
Absolutely, yeah. So Project Godwit's a partnership project between the RSPB and WWT, and it's funded for 5 years by the EU Life Fund and several other funders as well. And the main aim really is, as our tagline says, to secure the future of black-tailed godwits in the UK. So we've got quite a big team of us that are working on this. So the project is in its 4th year, but unfortunately due to COVID-19, it has been postponed at the moment until it's safe to work. But we are technically in the 4th year of the project.
Right, okay, and I just wanted to put this picture up, number one, because it is absolutely superb. But number two, just so that we can explain to people what a Godwit is, because not everybody watching this might be familiar with a Godwit.
No, and I have to admit, before I started working on the project, I had seen them, but I knew very little about them. If you're not a bird watcher or you don't go to wetlands, then the chances are you've probably never seen one. They're quite a large wading bird, and they're a great one actually when you're first starting bird watching. So a lot of the wetland centres will use Godwits as a almost like a gateway bird into waders for beginners in bird watching. But yeah, they're beautiful birds. That bill is about 12 centimetres long, and they're quite chunky, and yet they look quite elegant and tall and graceful as well. Yeah,
well, I'm a bit biased because I think wading birds are the best birds anyway, but don't tell your ducks. So, right, okay, so obviously this is a sort of scene that we're used to seeing, in the UK. We're used to seeing a lot of Godwits together. So why a project for Godwits, basically? Because aren't they numerous?
Yeah, you would think so, yeah. So a lot of bird watchers, they will be used to seeing big flocks of black-tailed godwits, particularly in the winter time. But that's because we actually get 2 subspecies that visit the UK. So the ones that you see in large flocks in the winter time are Icelandic godwits, black-tailed godwits. So their scientific name is Limosa icelandica, and they overwinter here, and then they breed over in Iceland, as their name suggests. So they're winter visitors only. Whereas the second subspecies is the one that Project Godwit is all about, and that's a godwit called Limosa. And that's one that breeds in the UK, of which, when we started the project, it was suspected that there was less than 50 breeding pairs in the UK, so they're considerably rarer. They were at one stage, they were extinct in the UK, and then the first one came back in 1952, and then slowly they started to recover. But then, as you can see from the graph, that from about 1975, their population declined quite rapidly on the ooze washes. And so when the project began in 2017, there was only 3 pairs nesting on the ooze, and it should be ideal habitat for them, really. But lots of things have meant that they're were no longer successful in breeding there. So that's what all the project is about. It's not the Icelandic godwits that you see huge amounts of. It's the Limosa subspecies that breeds on the ooze, and also at the Neen as well. So that orange line you can see is the breeding success at the Neen washes, which is close to the ooze. And you can see they've done pretty well in recent years, but from about 2005 it starts to sort of level off, and now it's starting to go back down again. What
factors are behind that? Why is that happening?
So that's lots of reasons. So the first one was that the habitat started to become unsuitable because of unusual unseasonal spring flooding. So the water levels were very unpredictable, and it meant that nests and eggs were getting washed away, and it was also forcing godwits to nest in less suitable breeding sites.
Right.
So in ploughed fields where there's very little water and invertebrate food for them. So that's a big factor in it, is a loss of habitat due to flooding, but also that it's a result of predation as well. As the population has got smaller, it's got more vulnerable to what would be a normal amount of predation on a population. It's actually having quite a big effect. And that's because the Godwit chicks, when they first hatch out of their eggs, they are, as you can see, they're very cute, but they're
perfect timing.
They're completely flightless for the first 30 days of their life. They only fledge when they're about 30 days old. So in that time, they're very vulnerable to any surprise flooding. but also any predators as well. So that's land predators like foxes and weasels and stoats, but also avian predators as well, like marsh harriers and red kites and buzzards as well.
Yeah, so they've got a lot to contend with. And you mentioned habitats. So could you talk us through this, what looks like supreme habitat? Could you just talk us through that?
Yeah, so this that stretch of water that you can see, the long thin one, that's the Ouse Washes when it's flooded. But that square patch that's the other side of the Ouse Washes with all those lovely pools, that's what we call Lady Fen, and that's the view that you can see from the cafe at the Welney Wetland Centre windows. And that area of land, we have full control over the water levels on that side, whereas on the Ouse Washes, we've got no control over that. That's controlled by sluices at either end. So the wardens at Welney have created this fantastic wetland habitat with water levels that are perfect for godwits and other breeding waders as well. So ones that would normally be breeding on the Ouse, they've got somewhere else that they can go if the Ouse floods. So it's perfect for godwits in that it's got shallow scrapes of water, and short wet grassland is what they really love, particularly invertebrate rich short wet grassland with lots of variation in grass levels so that the chicks can hide from danger if they need to, and just lots of diverse insect life to eat.
And I believe has this been sort of specially prepared for the project?
It has, yeah. So that's a typical scrape that the wardens would use with a digger to make kind of really nice different levels of mud for different types of waders to feed. Sort of creating a mosaic of habitats is the key when you're looking at waders with different levels of mud, because each wading bird has got a different shaped beak that's suitable for a different level of mud or a different type of habitat. So it's about sort of creating lots of different opportunities for them to feed and also for them to hunker down and protect themselves as well. So all that land that's Lady Fen behind Welney, that actually used to be a carrot farm before it was wetland. Right,
now clearly this is not carrot picking. So talk us through what is actually happening here. So what I think the next few slides sort of talk about the project. So what I'll do is if you can just describe bits about what's happening in the project, and what I'll do is I'll sort of try and flip through some slides as you're explaining.
Absolutely, yeah. So we've got several methods that we use to try and help the black-tailed godwits. One is habitat management that we've been over. One is research, looking at their migration, and also researching predators as well, and looking at their behaviour and experimenting with different types of anti-predator fencing. And then this, which is head starting. So head starting is a conservation tool that's used, and that's Nikki in that photo, who's from the breeding team at Slimbridge. So she's a conservation breeding officer, and what she's doing there is she's collecting eggs from the Neen Washes, where there are pretty good numbers of godwit nests, but sadly quite a low chick survival rate. They also struggle with flooding there, but they also particularly struggle with predators as well. So Nikki's collecting those eggs, and then you notice there's a little egg box with some pretend eggs in, and what she'll do is she'll put those in the nest. She'll then leave, and then that encourages the wild godwit to come back, and it means that the team from the RSPB can catch them and ring them or put geolocators on them. So they don't always replace them with decoy eggs like that. It's only if the RSPB team want to do a bit of research. And so,
right, so if you take the eggs like that, and if you don't replace them with a decoy, what happens? Do they have more than one brood, godwits?
They do, yes. So we do this quite early in the season, in April time, so that when the godwit parent returns and it sees that the nest is empty, it does have the opportunity to relay a new clutch. So we get the opportunity to look after a clutch, and so does the wild godwit too. And we do all of this is under license from Natural England, so they're very specific about when we can collect the eggs and which sites we can get them from. So it's all very carefully planned and regulated to minimise disturbance to anything else, any other birds, and like I said, doing it early enough so that the godwits can relay an egg. So, and the eggs then get transported back to Welney Wetland Centre, where we have a breeding facility for the black-tailed godwits. So here's a lovely one hatching.
Yeah, this is an amazing piece of video. I couldn't believe when it was. In fact, I think the first time I saw this was actually in the cafe in Welney. I think you had it on the screen. Yeah, it might be in this footage, it might be different, but just stunning piece. I mean, you know, how privileged to be able to watch something like that.
Yeah, it's quite amazing when you think how rare that is. That's such a precious little bird inside there. And when I show this video to children, and when I go into the schools, they are really amazed by what comes out. It's actually quite a large bird that comes out of quite a small egg. And yeah, that
has a bit of cramp when it comes out then.
yeah, they have surprisingly large feet when they come out. So last year we collected 51 eggs, and 48 of them fledged, which was a pretty amazing success rate. There he is with his big feet just come out.
Yeah, that's just amazing.
It is, yeah. So this all happens in a porter cabin in the Welney Wetland Centre car park. So it looks very simple, but it's got very high biosecurity regulations. And the team from Slimbridge, the conservation breeding team, come down and they stay in Welney for about 3 months, preparing for the chicks' arrivals and then looking after them and caring for them as well. So it's quite a big undertaking to look after an average of about between 30 and 40 chicks. Yeah.
And at this stage, clearly they're quite vulnerable. You've obviously got sort of biosecurity, and there's nothing there, hopefully, that could sort of harm it from a disease point of view. What other sort of, at that point when it's in the incubator, are there any other sort of potential threats to it at that point?
There's always a bit of a concern that we might have a power cut. And so if the incubators lose power, they lose heat, and then the chicks won't survive. So they kind of receive round-the-clock care, and they're checked pretty regularly from the head starting team. So they stay very nearby, and they take it in turns to go and run the centre to make sure nothing disastrous like that happens as well. And then they're very meticulous about wearing gloves, covering their faces. They have full kind of boiler suits to make sure that they don't transmit any potential germs that could harm the chicks as well.
That's excellent. It seems strange that you should go through all that trouble of collecting the eggs and then incubating them and then putting them in a toaster. So this is clearly the incubator. And what age would them chicks there be?
Oh, probably only a few hours or possibly a day. So when they hatch, they put them under some sort of heat lamp so that they can dry off quickly, so they don't catch a chill, and so they go very fluffy. But within a few hours of hatching, they are very independent and they can feed for themselves and they know what to do, which is great in a way, because it means you don't have to have a parent bird showing them what to do. The WWT did a famous project with cranes, the Eurasian crane or the common crane, where they did head starting with them. But cranes, they need to imprint on an adult bird, and they need an adult bird to show them what to do. So Nikki was part of that team as well, and they sort of had to disguise their human form and make themselves look like cranes every time they did any work with the cranes. So, but we don't have to do that with Godwits, which is kind of a relief, although it would be kind of fun as well to dress up. I'd like
to see you dressed as a Godwit.
I'd see you enjoy it, yeah.
So clearly here they are, they're being looked after, and it's obviously Christmas because we've got a piece of Christmas tree in there. Is that the case?
Not quite, no. So the tree is to provide them with a bit of enrichment. It's something that they can walk around and they can stretch their muscles to kind of just basically get a bit better on their feet. When they first hatch, their feet are so big that sometimes they stand on their own feet and trip over. So it kind of helps to coordinate them a bit more, and they can lean on it, they can use it as a support, just to kind of develop and help their leg muscles as well, and to provide them with a bit of greenery, which is similar to what their habitat is going to look like.
Right. And then, so obviously moving outdoors. So how old are these chicks here now, do you reckon?
Well, they move out when they're about 6 or 7 days old.
Right.
Depends on the Godwits and how they're getting on, really. But yeah, these ones will be roughly about 7 days old. So we've got 2 of these rearing pens that are directly behind the breeding centre, the porter cabinet in the car park. And then we have a release pen, which is much further back in Lady Fen, that they go to just before they're released as well. So they stay here for a while, and here they learn how to probe the ground to look for food. They're still given supplementary food by the aviculturists, but they have the chance to sort of glean insects, midges and things off of leaves, and just experience the sights and sounds of their habitat a bit more.
Yeah.
Teach them about how to react to predators, because you do get birds of prey flying over. So they've almost got like this little practice run, getting them used to the washes. Yeah,
and then I noticed that a sort of few cages away you keep a few humans in a cage just for comparison. Is that right?
yeah, that's no doubt that's the head starting team. Yeah, so they're
but only ones with big feet, just
so they don't fall over in the washes. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, a fantastic picture. We'll talk for about an hour and a half over this one, because this is an amazing picture. So what we'll notice straight away is that they are clearly not born with sort of rings around the legs. So can you explain to us sort of the rings and also some of the tracking that you do?
Yeah, so all of the head started Godwits from our project, they've got 4 colour rings on them. Although some of them, very few, don't have as many rings on them. Sometimes some are hatched with slightly smaller legs and they just can't fit all that bling on them. So some of them have less, but the majority of our birds have got 4 colour rings that are above their knee joint. And you can tell that it's a bird from our project because they've all got a lime coloured E ring, so a ring with the letter E on it. And so each of these is colour coded and it's recorded, and they do all have names as well as their colour combinations. So we can sort of recognise them by their names as well as by their colour. And then you notice at the bottom of their legs, they've got the classic BTO ring as well, the silver ring that goes on as well. So, and then some of them have got a little flag poking out of some of their rings, or like a little lump on it, and that's a geolocator. So some of the kind of fitter birds, or the birds that we, fingers crossed, think they're gonna have a good run. The team put geolocators on them so that we can track their migration. But the thing with geolocators is that it doesn't give you live information. You have to then recatch the bird to download the data. So it kind of relies on you being able to see the bird again and to catch the bird again.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what we'll do, we'll come back to that right at the end, just as by means of an update. So they've gone into that first pen, they've come into this, which is the holding pen that you mentioned at Lady Fen. Yeah. I think it's worth me pressing play, he says, and then let's just, if you talk us through it. I mean, it's quite self-explanatory, but an amazing piece of footage. So I'll let you talk us through it again. That's it.
It is, yeah. So I believe that this is the footage of the very first release when we started in 2017. So I wasn't present for this because I didn't join the project until the 3rd year, till 2019. So people didn't quite know how the Godwits were going to react. But if you just saw there, they jumped straight out and they flew off instantly. So a couple of days before this, they will have been flapping about and they would have been stretching their flight muscles and having a practice at flying and getting ready to fledge. And then this is them doing just that. And this is the team who are very excited that it's happening. It probably was quite an emotional moment. So that's some staff at the front there from Slimbridge. And then, as you can see there, that's a fully fledged head started Godwit, and that's the whole aim of it, is to basically that 30 days of their life to give them a head start, to give them lots of good nutrients and a kind of, well, a head start in life basically. And so that's a wild Godwit doing exactly what it should do, as if it had hatched out in the wild.
Yeah. So I mean that really is a fantastic piece of footage, and those people deserve to be pleased with themselves, because it's a great project, and to see sort of birds that they've nurtured actually fly out and then behave naturally must have been just absolutely mind-boggling for them. It must have been amazing.
Yeah, definitely, it's great, and I think it's a testament to exactly how the people that look after them behave around them. That there's very little contact between them. They only sort of handle them when they really need to, when they're ringing them or when the vet comes and checks their health. But the whole time that they're working with the Godwits, they're working in complete silence, so that the Godwits don't get used to the sound of us, so that they don't think of humans as something that's friendly that will feed them. We want them to behave as wild Godwits would.
Yeah, sure. And you mentioned up front of the interview about education, and obviously that's something that's very close to my heart, and I was thrilled that you sent me these pictures, because this obviously shows the interaction between the project and schools and children. So can you just give us a little bit of background as to what you do with that, because it's fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah. So this is my main job, is to deliver the schools programme that Project Godwit has. So they did 2 years of the project, and it was very successful. We had great sighting numbers, we had good survival rate, and it was going well. And then by the 3rd year, we thought, right, well, it's time to start shouting about this and about letting the local community know about this quite innovative project that's happening 20 minutes from their house. This is the first time that this was done with waders in the UK, so it's a big success. So I started at Welney, and I contacted schools roughly within 20 miles of Welney Wetland Centre and offered them free outreach sessions to try and enthuse them about, again, not just Project Godwit, but about wetlands and about their local habitat as well, because these are children of the fens, and yet they maybe don't get to spend very much time out in the fens. So I would go in and I'd spend about an hour with each class. And the first year we did this, it had unbelievably successful uptake of schools. So I did 18 sessions over the spring and summer, which, considering I'm part-time, was good going. So that was across 8 different schools. So I was really happy with the uptake and with the enthusiasm from teachers and parents and pupils as well. So we did it for key stage 1 and 2, so just primary schools in the first year. And they do a session with me. We talk about wetlands in general, the wildlife that you can see at wetlands, which wetlands are nearby to them. But also, we're not trying to just teach them about wetlands. We're trying to teach them that this is something that they can be proud of and that they can be active in as well, and kind of take ownership of. We do games where we look at different shaped beaks and how they feed. I show them presentations, and I show them those videos that we've just shown you as well. And they are amazed by the chicks hatching out of the eggs. And yeah, they're totally transfixed by Godwits. I was almost nervous when I first started, because I thought, Godwits, I like them because I'm a bird watcher and I'm into birds, but are they just going to be boring brown birds to these children? But it was quite the opposite, and it was because we were talking to them about how they're adapted to their habitat and what they do. And one of the things that impressed them most was the migration as well. So our Godwits that are released at Welney, they can fly as far as West Africa to Senegal and spend the winter there, and that really captured their imagination. So we had children at the end of their sessions telling me that Godwits were now their favourite animal.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant. That's what we need, more of that.
Exactly, yeah. And that little badge up in the corner there is a Godwit Guardian badge. So we have this scheme where once they've had an outreach session from me, they can sign up to be Godwit Guardians as a class. So they get to choose one of the head started birds and they receive updates about it, and they sort of become a champion for that particular Godwit. And we send them newsletters and updates about when the Godwit's been seen. And that's proven to be extremely successful as well and popular. Sometimes I even bump into the children if I'm at Welney and they've come to visit with their parents, or I've been at community events and I've bumped into some of our Godwit Guardians, and they always ask me how their particular bird is getting on. So that it's definitely a way of making them have a bit more of a personal connection with the project and with the birds.
It's brilliant. You know, having seen how kids respond to something like a goal that I took into Pensthorpe and showed them, I can imagine, you know, that you've got one up on me with Godwits. So right.
Goals too, just so you know.
Oh, right. I think they're amazing things. I might even do a sort of presentation about that at some stage.
Amazing.
Right. So brings us, because you did mention, and we did talk about the colourings. This is really important. I promote this through Pensthorpe as well. Could you talk us through how people can get involved and how they can help? Because clearly you mentioned migration, and I think if you lead by just giving us a little bit of background to that and how they tracked, and then just tell us what this part of the project's all about. Absolutely,
yeah. So from the work that the RSPB do on the project, installing the geolocators onto their legs, we've found that the Godwits do quite remarkable journeys. So they will stop off, they'll sort of leave in autumn time from Welney, and they'll stop off at important wetland sites in places like France and Spain and the Netherlands, and they'll go as far as Portugal as well. And then some will go as far as Senegal. And we've recently just had one of our birds that was released in 2019. We've had a sighting of them seen in Morocco, and that's the first of our project birds that's been seen in Morocco, which is really nice. So they cover some ground, and we're really interested to know where they go and when people see them and what dates they return, and looking at all sorts of factors that affect that, like environmental factors like the weather, or food availability, or what their habitats are like in their sort of landing places in France and Spain as well. So we do ask people to be active in the project and send us their sightings if they've seen a Godwit that's got colourings on it. So it's very easy to submit a sighting. You can just go onto our website and report it, and it's fantastic if you can get a photo, but it's not essential. Not everybody's got long lenses, but it's extremely helpful to us, and it's a form of citizen science as well, which I'm very passionate about, really getting local people involved. So that's one of many ways that you can get involved. There's lots of ways you can get involved. So we also have Godwit tours. So they're not running this year, unfortunately. We're not able to do any head starting or any engagement events because of the virus, but hopefully it should be restored next year. But we do tours where at the end of May, beginning of June, you can come and see the Godwits in their rearing pens before they get released. We don't let you get particularly close because we don't want them to get too attached to the human form. But you can come and have a look at the project site, and then you can go and see in Welney if you can see any wild birds there as well. So that's another way you can get involved. And then also if you've got a school or a local community group that wants a talk or an outreach session, you can get in touch and do that way as well. And we've also just released, it's kind of perfect timing really, we've just released our education pack, which is a classroom pack, and that's free to download from our website, and it's aimed at teachers, but it's actually really perfect for parents that are homeschooling at the moment. And that's got lots of activities, lesson plans, curriculum links as well, looking at how you can use wetlands as a topic for your class or if you're homeschooling. And that again is very much focused on trying to get children interested in their local wetland habitats. So that's another way that you can get involved as well.
That's excellent. And what I'll do is after this, I'll put a link to that page because I was looking at it this morning and it's great. So I'll put a link to that page on the actual video. on the YouTube page. So I'm going to try and get you back now.
Okay.
So again, it could all go dramatically wrong, but we'll see what happens. So bear with me.
No problem.
Right, now I've pressed stop sharing. So hopefully you're seeing me and I'm seeing you.
It looks good. Yeah, I can see you.
Well, I don't know whether apparently it looks good, but you can see me. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. It really was. It was a great introduction to what is an extremely good project. Like you said, the first one for waders in the country. Clearly showing signs of success. In normal times, I would like to have done this video actually at Welney with you and actually walked through the project. And you know, maybe it might have to be next year now. We could maybe do something and put that up as well.
That'd be great.
That would be fantastic. So for now, unless you've got anything else that you want to add, you look like you have.
Yeah, no, just that do have a look at the website for anyone who's watching. There's huge amounts of information on there, and also just another extra thing, if anyone wants to get involved, we're currently creating an online flock of Godwits because we're unable to make a real flock of Godwits this year. So that's detailed on the website if you want to get involved in this. But yeah, just to sort of conclude that it's a very interesting project, not just for me professionally, but for me personally as well, because I'm quite early on in my career and it's enabled me to meet lots of really interesting people who really know their stuff and have got huge amounts of expertise and knowledge. So I can't praise WWT enough, really. So it's it's great.
Well, thanks ever so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
Really appreciate you having to go through 3 laptops, 14 different versions of Skype so that we could actually get to this point.
Oh, no,
I've got my fingers crossed that everything's recorded, so we won't have to do this again. But I will be looking for updates, so I will keep in touch with you. And you know, we will try and get some regular updates as to what's happening with the project, because I say it's an extremely good project, and I wish you loads of luck with it going forward. And let's stay in touch.
Great, thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Jess.